Welcome back to another episode of Second ID. Yes, today I'd like to discuss a bit about how we can possibly integrate another language into our life. I personally consider language learning to be a living thing. It's constantly changing. It's like a life force. Um, so wherever you are right now, whether you're in Japan learning Japanese or Chinese in China, um, we all have different circumstances under which we learn the language. So whatever languages you're learning at the moment, one or two languages or three languages at the same time, all of these different languages have different unique systems and characteristics. We have to consider the traditions of the language or the cultural components of the language and the social structure in which the language functions and the norms, the common courtesies. All of these are the factors that might affect your learning experiences. So a language, in a sense, represents our life, our lifestyle, the existence of things, which could be physical matters or physical objects, we might say, or it could be abstract or abstractions, such as love, friendship. The language is there to express these ideas or things in our lives. It also shows our ancestry or lineage. All of these are should be in consideration when you're learning another language. So why is it so important to know or learn about these cultural elements, the definition of a language and what a language does for our lives? It is important to know all of this because our roots or our inherited traits are the ones that paralyzed our ability to learn naturally. We have all these inherited biological traits and physiological traits, and that's what have shaped our personality. We behave certain way because we have genetically predisposed brain. And in order to learn another language, you have to break through that barrier. So it is important to be aware of what really caused us to feel this enormous difficulty when it comes to learning something new. It's not really limited to acquiring another language. When we try to pick up a skill, a lot of times we feel like, oh, we can't really do it for some reason, and we don't really know why. We feel this way because there are many factors involved in this. First one here is our roots, our genetic predisposition that limits us to thinking and behaving in a certain way. And these genetic codes are the embodiment of our ancestry. So it shows our roots of lineage. We didn't have any control over these genetic codes, genetic information. When we are born with it. We didn't have any choice. We just inherited it. And these genetic codes preconditioned our personality traits, our mind, the way we think, which is necessary for individuals, for us to function optimally within a given society. Without it, we won't be accepted into the society. We'll be alienated and will be considered to be an outsider. The problem with this, when it comes to learning another language, is that every society has this condition. And we are now trying to, as we are learning another language, now we're trying to break through and trying to adopt a new cultural system and societal system, which is a challenge because we've been used to function within one particular society. The question is, how can we change our behavior in order to learn anything new, in this case, learning another language? Well, it's not going to be easy for anybody, especially for those adults who are already, grown up, and we spent a good portion of our lives for about, I don't know, for me it's like it's more than 30 years speaking the same language, my mother tongue, Korean. So I had to reprogram my brain somehow, like installing a new software of another language into my existing system. It was not easy. It was painful actually, because it require the person to sort of like delete the existing file, the whole storage, to be eradicated. You have to like terminate your existing system of your first language culture, your original culture, for a while. When you're learning another language, you have to completely forget about what you're used to be, or what you habitually engage yourself in. You have to get rid of that, and then creating this kind of willingness to adopt a new system, which is another language. So another thing that we should keep in mind when we are learning another language is that I think somehow I think it's very natural we won't do anything that we don't like. So which means that when it comes to learning another language, we have to somehow have some sort of interest in that culture of the our second language. If it's not interesting, we're gonna quit sometime very soon. Some people say that well, you can persist if there are some sort of instrumental or practical benefits from learning another language. Then because of that reward, you're gonna persist. But I think there are limitations to that, because, like I said in the earlier in this episode, language is a living thing. It keeps changing, and it requires the person or the speaker to stay up to date. If there are new words and new phrases, new expressions coming up, or being created by some, like, I don't know, random teenagers, and you have stopped learning that language for a while, then you're getting behind already. So the question remains, is it really possible to rewrite our existing genetic codes? I think there have been many studies done on that. But I'll tell you my experience, though. I'm not saying these studies are not important, but I think I like to speak from my experience. Because I am utilitarian, empirical when it comes to learning. I won't tell you anything that I haven't experienced, and everything I say here is really based on my experiences. So be aware of the individual differences when you're listening to my podcast. If you want to rewrite or become a different person or your future self, you have to be desperate in the beginning, and you have to be fascinated by the culture of your second language. You have to love the culture. You have to love the language. You have to love the sound of the language. So it starts with attraction. You have to be attracted to that language. Otherwise, you're gonna quit, like I said before. And you have to make some sort of a connection to that culture of the language, and you have to have some sort of hobbies or something that you like to enjoy yourself with. It could be like watching TV shows, whatever, anything that would keep you interested in in learning that language. So only then you'll be willing to adopt new system, new cultural, societal system. So be aware of all of these. I've been talking about in this episode. Your personal inherited traits, your personality traits, whatever you call it, where they come from. Examine yourself, your behavior, whether they're fixed or patterned, the ways of your thinking. All of these are really important to consider. If you want to regain your neuroplasticity, that the intuitive ability to learn a new thing or a new language, once you know your place, where you are, what inherited traits you have, what political ideologies are running through your first language society's first language culture, then you'll be less judgmental on other cultures, other languages, other societies, because you now understand how different societies have their own unique systems and how their languages function within that system. And you'll be more willing to learn from all these differences. All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening and your time.